Hello and good day, students. This is lecture 3 of 6, module 5 on writing skills. This is GST 111/211, communication in English. My name is Dr. Aliyu Yakubu Yusuf. Stay tuned. Today we are going to discuss letter writing on this slide. That is lecture 3 of 6. When it comes to letter writing, nowadays letters are becoming somewhat obsolete in a way because of the prevalence of emails and text messaging as other alternative ways of correspondence. But despite the existence of email and text messages, letters still enjoy a pride of place, especially when it comes to organizations corresponding to other people or communicating with people and other organizations. That is why many organizations still employ highly trained and specialized secretaries and legal practitioners who help in writing good letters for them. So despite the coming of email, despite the coming of text messaging, letters still enjoy a pride of place, especially the formal letter that is written by organizations and individuals to correspond with others. So letters still enjoy a pride of place in terms of utility, and they are very much important in organizational activities. Then types of letters. There is a bit of controversy among experts with regard to the type of letters that should be adopted in normal communication. That is to say, there is no unanimous agreement among scholars with regards to the type of letters. Some scholars classify letters into two, that is formal letter and informal letter. Some scholars add another classification and classify letters into three: formal letter, informal letter, and semi-formal letter. It is important to note that the type of letter is determined by the tone, physical feature, and the purpose for which it is written. Now, whether a letter is a formal one, whether it is an informal one, or a semi-formal one, it is determined by the tone and the language used by the writer, as well as the physical appearance of the letter and the purpose for which it is written. Now we are going to begin with the formal letter. A formal letter is otherwise known as a business or official letter, and it is a letter written for official communication, especially in business establishment, public institutions, and other private organizations. This letter, in other words, is the one that is written especially by establishments, institutions, and organizations, and it is meant for official communication. It is meant to be received and read by people in the position of authority. A formal letter can be an application letter, can be a letter of complaint, can be a letter of request, can be a letter of inquiry, can be a letter of acknowledgement, can be a letter of notification, and so on and so forth. Its language must be accurate, concise, clear, and strictly formal, without unnecessary greetings or show of familiarity. In fact, it is the language that determines whether it is a formal letter or it is a formal letter. One of the features that make it different from others is its language. It is written in an accurate, formal, concise, and clear language without unnecessary show of familiarity or expression of greeting. Even if the person you are sending the letter to is known to you, you are communicating to him or her in a formal context. Therefore, you shouldn't show any familiarity or closeness. Likewise, the language is expected to be devoid of ambiguity, contraction, slang, cliches, idioms, proverbs, wordiness, archaisms, and abbreviations. When you are writing a formal letter, you are expected to use a language in a formal way. That is why you should avoid ambiguity. You should avoid using contraction. You should avoid using slang or slangy expressions. You should avoid cliches, idioms, proverbs, wordiness, archaisms, and abbreviations. All these language usages must be avoided because you are speaking to someone in the position of authority. You are speaking to an official. you are speaking to someone who is holding a particular important public or private office. So the letter should be strictly formal, short and precise. Now, format of a formal letter. Now, when you come to write a formal letter, the first thing that comes in the formal letter is the address. Formal letter has two addresses. There is the address of the writer who is the addressor, and the address of the addressee, that is the recipient of the letter. So you have the address of the writer and that of the reader. The writer is the addressor, while the reader is the addressee. The address can be written in a blocked or slanted form, and must be written in full, with the exception of formal abbreviations such as PMB or PO Box. Yes, with the exception of PMB or PO Box, which is a formal abbreviation, all the other words in the address must be written in full. Avoid using abbreviations when it comes to writing a formal letter. Don't use ST for street, or RD for road, or AV for avenue. Write everything in full because it is a formal letter. That is why only abbreviations such as PMB or PO Box, which are also formal, are allowed in a formal letter. The address of the writer, which comes first, is written at the top right hand side of the first page, followed by the date. So when you come to write a formal letter, your address as the writer should be written at the top right hand side of the page, and it is followed by the date. Then immediately below it, then the address of the recipient or the reader, and it starts at the first line following the last line of the address of the writer. Then the address of the writer, the reader, or the recipient, follows that of the writer, and it is written on the other side, on the left hand side of the page. Like I have said, avoid abbreviations in both the two addresses. And if the letter is to be sent to another country, you are advised to write the name of your country in your own letter in your address. Now, number 2, the second feature is the date. The date is written only once in your letter, that is below the address of the writer and before the address of the recipient, followed by a full stop. When you come to write the date, write it immediately below your own address before you start writing the address of the recipient or the reader. There are many ways in which you can write address in the date. We can see them here on the screen. We have 2nd April 2016. We have 02/04/2016. We have 02-04-2016. We have April 2nd 2016, and so on and so forth. All these are ways in which you can write the date below your address, before the address of the recipient or the reader. The next is the salutation. The salutation is a short greeting with which the writer offers his or her letter. This is the only greeting you are allowed to use in a formal letter, the salutation. You write it below the address of the recipient at the left hand side of the paper. It comes in form of dear sir, dear madam, dear sir, dear madam, and it is followed by a comma. Dear sir or dear madam is a short formal greeting with which you open your letter, and it is written below the address of the reader. Here abbreviations are allowed with titles such as Mr., Mrs., Miss, Dr., etc. However, you can decide to drop the full stop after each title. Here, when it comes to salutation, you can use abbreviation. You can see dear Dr. Ibrahim, dear Mrs. Johnson, and so on and so forth. You can do that. However, you can also decide to drop the full stop after each title. For example, you can write Mr. without any dot or full stop. You can write Doctor or Prof without the full stop. However, at the end of the salutation, you are expected to place a comma. You put a comma. Dear Mr. Ibrahim, comma. Dear sir, comma. Dear madam, comma. In the event where you are not sure about the gender of the person you are sending the letter to, you can write dear sir / madam, then followed by a comma. The next feature of the formal letter is the title or heading of the letter. This is written below the salutation and indicates the subject matter of the letter. Yes, a title of a letter comes immediately below the salutation, and it indicates what the letter is all about. It indicates the subject matter or topic of the letter. If it is a letter of appreciation, the title should be letter of appreciation. If it is a letter of apology, the title should be letter of apology. If it is a notification, it should indicate so. If it is a letter of application for a job, the title should indicate so. So the title indicates what the letter talks about. Titles can be written either in the upper or in the lower case. You can decide to write your title either in the upper case or in the lower case. However, if it is written in the lower case, it must be underlined so that it becomes separate from the body of the letter. But if it is written in the upper case, there is no need to underline it. You don't have to underline it. It should be left without any underline. Likewise, if you are printing the letter, if you are typing the letter on a computer, you can put your title in the bold face or bold print to separate it from the main body of the letter. Now, the next is the body of the letter. This is where all the information which you want to pass across comes. This is where the letter contains its introduction, middle, and the conclusion. This is where you pass across the message that you want to convey to your reader. This is where you talk about what you want to talk about in the letter. Like I have said, the body of the letter usually has the introduction, the middle, and the concluding part of the letter. The introductory part gives the background information on the purpose of the letter. At the beginning of the letter, you provide a small background, a little background about the purpose for which you are writing the letter. Then the middle part presents and develops the item of information the letter is intended for in short paragraphs. In the middle of the letter, this is where you talk about the information that you intend to pass across, that you intend to convey, that triggers you to write the letter. Then the concluding part, this is where you state a desire or hope about what should happen next. This is done in order to avoid abrupt ending of the letter. In the concluding part, this is where you state a desire or the desire or hope about what should happen next. It may come in form of a rallying cry, a short prayer, and so on and so forth, so that you shouldn't have to end the letter abruptly. Then after the body of the letter, we have the complementary clause or subscription. This is written about 1 or 2 lines from the body of the letter at the left or the right hand side of the page below the body of the letter. And the most acceptable form of complementary clause or subscription in formal letters is yours faithfully, yours truly, yours sincerely, or best regards, or best wishes. These are all ways of writing complementary clause or subscription. But when you come to write your subscription, the Y should be in a capital letter, while all the other subsequent letters should be in small letters in the lower case. Yours faithfully with only Y in the capital letter, yours sincerely with only Y in the capital letter, yours truly with Y in the capital letter, best regards with B in the capital letter, and best wishes with B again in the capital letter, then followed by a comma. All the other letters should be in the lower case. Only the letter at the beginning of the complementary clause should be in the upper case. Likewise, there should be a comma that must follow the complementary clause. Then lastly, the signature and the name of the writer, which is the last item in a formal letter. The signature of the writer should follow the complementary clause. Then the writer's full name. A woman here is advised to indicate her marital status by putting either Miss if she is unmarried, or Mrs. if she is married, or just Miss, which applies to both married and the unmarried women. In most formal letters, women are advised to indicate their marital status. If she is not married, she can put Miss Habiba, Miss Mariam, Miss Amina, Miss Blessing. If she is married, she can put Mrs. Ibrahim, her husband name, Mrs. Aminu, Mrs. Patrick, and so on and so forth. But if she doesn't want to indicate her marital status, she can just write Miss, MS, which applies to both married and unmarried women. So they have a choice either to indicate their marital status or not. Likewise, all titles in the all titles here in the name should be written in bracket after her full name. For example, Mrs. Ibrahim, then in bracket Doctor or Prof, and so on and so forth. Now finally, here we have a sample, an example of a formal letter that is written sometimes ago. At the top you can see by the right hand side there is the address of the writer, number 122 Waziri Gedado Road, Gwale Local Government, Kano. Then you have the date following the address, April 2nd, 2021. Then below this address you can see the address of the reader, the registrar, Bayero University, PMB 3011, Kano. This is the address of the reader or recipient of the letter. As you can see, both addresses are punctuated, are fully punctuated with commas and full stop. But if you like, you can drop the punctuation marks. You can leave the addresses unpunctuated, which means that if the address of the writer is not punctuated, that of the reader must also not be punctuated. There should be synergy or correspondence in terms of punctuation marks in the addresses. Then below the address of the reader you can see Dear Sir, which is the salutation, Dear Sir, followed by a comma. You can see the D in the capital letter and the S also in the capital letter, followed by a comma. Then below the salutation you can see the title or heading of the letter, which is letter of request for deferment of my studies. That is the title of the letter. The title is written in upper and lower case, as you can see, and it is put in bold print to make it distinct from the body of the letter. Then below the title you can see the body of the letter. The letter is short and is written in just 4 lines, as you can see on the screen, and it goes straight to the point. Let me read it. I write to inform you that I am a returning level 2 student of the Department of English and Literary Studies. Due to financial problems, I was unable to do my registration before the registration portal was closed. Thus, I write this letter to request for the deferment of my studies for this academic session until next year. I can then continue from my current level of study. In view of the unfortunate situation I have encountered, I pray that my request will receive your kind consideration. This is the end of the letter. This is the body of the letter. It is short, precise, and straight to the point. Then the complementary clause or subscription. Yours faithfully with Y in the capital letter and all the other letters in the small or uppercase. Then the subscription is followed by a comma, as you can see. Then below the subscription is the signature and full name of the writer. Here is where you input your signature and write your own name. This is a clear sample of a formal letter. Another type of letter is the informal letter. As the name implies, this is the informal type of letter which a writer writes to family members, relatives, friends, and acquaintances. As such, it is otherwise known as a friendly or a personal letter. Yes, because you write it to members of your family, your relatives, and your friends. That is why it is otherwise called a friendly or a personal letter. You write informal letter for a number of purposes, like to congratulate someone on the birth of a baby, to express sympathy, to offer greetings, or to provide information, and so on and so forth. There is certain level of familiarity between the writer and the recipient of an informal letter. That is why the language is expected to be relaxed, casual, and chatty. Yes, because there is familiarity, there is closeness, there is relationship, there is a rapport. There is a rapport between the writer and the receiver of an informal letter. That is why its language is not formal. It is relaxed, it is casual, and it is chatty. However, there is a difference in the level of familiarity in an informal letter. That is to say, the level of familiarity in an informal letter may differ from one person to another. This means that the language a person uses in writing to his father, uncle, or a very senior brother could be quite different from the one he or she uses to write to a friend or a colleague. Yes, even though it is an informal letter, whatever form it takes, but there is a difference in the formality, in the informality that you express when you are writing to different people. The letter you write to your father, to an uncle, or to a very senior brother or sister, the level of informality is a bit lower than the one you write to a friend or a colleague. That is to say, depending on who the person is, your level of informality should differ. Now let us discuss the format or the procedure of writing an informal letter. Informal letter also has its own format and structure. The first information is the address. In an informal letter, there is only one address, that is the address of the writer. It is written at the top right hand side of the page, followed by the date, just like it is in the formal letter. Here you also have an address of the writer, and it's written in the same place as in the formal letter, the top right hand side of the page, and it is followed by the date. Likewise, this one can also be in the blocked or an indented form. The writer may choose to punctuate all the lines in the address, or he or she may leave out the punctuation marks altogether, but he or she must be consistent. That is to say, you cannot put a punctuation mark in one line and then omit it in the next line. You have to be consistent all through. Then the date, like I have said, is following the address. It is written immediately below the address of the writer in the same direction, top right hand side of the page. Then after the date, the next is the salutation. As you can see here, we don't have any address of the recipient or the reader or the addressee. What we have after the address of the writer is the date, then the salutation. Here the salutation is informal. You can say something like dear Sani, dear Joseph, dear Mariam, my dear mother, my dear dad, my dear brother, my dearest friend, my dearest sister, my dearest Amina, and so on and so forth. So as you can see right from the beginning, the salutation itself is informal. And as you can see on the screen, the salutation is written in upper and lower case. The first letters of any word is written in an upper case, while others are written in the lower case. My dear mother, for example, M for my is in capital letter, D for dear is in capital letter, then M for mother is also in a capital letter. It applies to all the other variant. If you are saying dear Joseph, the D should be in capital letter, then the J for Joseph should be in capital letter. Then there is also a variation. You may decide to only put capital letter at the first letter of the words in the salutation. For example, in my dear mother, you can just put M in the capital letter, then the rest, dear mother, all in small letters. A salutation is always followed by a comma. When you write the salutation, it is followed by a comma. My dear mother, comma, dear Habibu, comma, my dear friend, comma. Then after the salutation, we go straight to the next, which is the body of the letter. And as you can see here, we don't have any title of the letter, unlike in the formal letter. We go straight to the body of the letter. This is the stage where the writer explains the message he or she wants to convey to the reader. This is where you talk about what you want to see to the reader. You see it in the body of the letter. And this is where the informal letter is most remarkably different from the formal letter. Here the tone and language and the style is very important. Here is where you show the level of familiarity and closeness that you have with the reader. Here you can use jokes, you can use idioms, you can use slang, you can use contractions, you can use many other language usages, cliches, proverbs, archaisms, and so on, because you are writing the letter to someone who is close to you. You are writing the letter to a friend, a brother, a sister, or any other family member, not to an official. Likewise, you can use, like I have said, contraction. Doesn't for does not, your for you are, isn't for is not, and so on and so forth. You can also begin by asking about someone's personal health and his or her family welfare. You are allowed to do so in an informal letter. You can begin by saying, how are you? How are you, mom? How is Musa and Ibrahim? How is everyone? I hope the whole family is doing well. Something like this, you can do that. It is allowed in an informal letter because there is familiarity between you and the person you are sending the letter to. Then after you finish the letter, the next is the complimentary clause or subscription. Here you can also use an informal subscription. You can say yours sincerely with Y in capital letter and the rest in small letters. Yours affectionately, yours, your loving daughter, your loving brother, your loving sister, your loving son. When you are writing to a father or mother, your loving son or your loving daughter, you can all write this. And the Y is the only letter that should be in an uppercase, and the complementary clause is followed by a comma. Then the last feature is the name of the writer. This is where this is written below the complementary clause. You write your name. You can write your full name, and you can write only your name, because this is not an official letter. It is a personal or friendly letter. So you can write just your first name. You can say something like, yours sincerely, or yours affectionately, Aliyu, or yours affectionately, Aliyu Yakubu Yusuf. All these are allowed. Then finally we have an example or a sample of an informal letter. Let us now go through it. Here in the beginning you have the address of the writer, 35 Junjimi Street, Sani Menegi Quarters, Kano State, 4th May 2016. So obviously this letter is going to be sent away from Kano. That is why Kano is indicated alongside state to indicate that the letter is to be sent outside Kano State. If to say the letter is to be sent outside Nigeria, then after Kano State there should be Nigeria before the date. Then after the address and the date, here we have the salutation. Dear Said, capital D, capital S, followed by a comma. Dear Said, how are you getting on? How is the weather at your new place? It's terribly hot here in Kano. I hope you are hale and hearty. The main reason for writing this letter to you is to ask about how well you have settled in your new surrounding. You know, since you were giving a transfer of service from Kano to Edo, I've been unable to contact you because of my hectic school schedule. For someone like you, who has never traveled to the southern part of Nigeria, to the southern part of this country, I am sure you are experiencing some sort of a culture shock as you are witnessing it firsthand now. The norms, values, and to some extent religion of the people in the south are completely different from those practiced largely in the north. This is not to talk of changes in weather and food. I know you are finding it very difficult to adjust to this new experience. However, since your work involves mingling with a lot of people, I am confident that in no time you will get acclimatized. I would also want to tell you that my friend Bula had her convocation ceremony last month. It was quite a memorable occasion. Many important personalities had graced the occasion and we snapped a lot of pictures. I am eagerly looking forward to ours next year. I know we will take some days off to attend it, huh? Lest I forget, Ahmad and Amina asked me to extend their greetings and well wishes to you. Thanks a lot. This is the body of this letter, and as you can see, we can see evidence of informality. In the first line we have, how are you getting on? How is the weather? This is how is, but it is contracted house. It's terribly hot here in Kano. It is, but we say it's. So these are contracted form, and you can see other forms of informality with the use of ha. I know you will take some days off to attend it, ha, and it begins by asking about how someone is getting on. You understand? This all indicates informality. Then after the body of the letter, finally we have the complementary clause or subscription. Yours sincerely, capital Y. Yours sincerely, then comma, then Dawood. The person who wrote the letter and sent it to Said is Dawood. You can see the name written, only the first name. Now finally we have another type of letter. Like I have told you at the beginning, there are people who think letters are divided into three: the formal, the semi-formal, and the formal, the informal, and the semi-formal. So this is the semi-formal letter. It is a letter which shares some characteristic of both formal and informal letters. That is why it is called a letter that is neither formal nor informal. It is called a semi-formal letter. Why is that so? It is because it shares some characteristic and features of both formal and the informal letters. So it is neither a formal letter nor an informal one, and it is also both a formal and an informal letter. This is a letter that we write to someone we know, but we do not share a close relationship or familiarity with them. This includes letters to former school head or boss for information, letters to an adult family friend, letters to a father's or mother's friend, and similar persons. Yes, when you write a letter to your former school head or your former school or class master or former boss for information, or when you write a letter to an adult family member, family friend or to your mother's or father's friend, you are writing a semi-formal type of letter. This letter contains only the address of the writer followed by salutation, just like an informal letter. Your address, the date, and the salutation. Dear Mr. Tayo, dear sir, and so on. Then it is followed by the body of the letter, which is written in a polite and respectful manner. Here, the language shouldn't be too serious to the extent that the letter looks like a formal letter. Here you are advised to be polite. Your tone, your style should be highly respectful, but don't be too serious, otherwise the letter will look more like like a formal letter than a semi-formal one. Then the closing. The closing can range from formal to less formal. You can close with yours sincerely, yours truly, best regards, cordially, and so on. Then finally, you write your name in full, or you write your initial and surname below the complementary clause. This is the semi-formal type of letter. Then in the last slide here is the summary of the whole lecture. So far we have discussed about the different types of letters, including the structures or formats. We have discussed the formal letter, the informal letter, and the semi-formal type of letter. We discussed the three, and we have provided sample for the formal and the informal letter to make it easy for students to relate the discussion with the real life situation. In the next class, that is lecture 4, we are going to discuss essay writing. Thank you very much for listening. Until then, goodbye.